Hello and welcome to the Road to Success Awards 2025.
The Road to Success Awards of 2025.
In this episode, I will be going through some of my favourite conversations, favourite moments, and the things you don't always get to see that happen on this very podcast. But first, Ben, in your own words, who are you and what do you do? Yes, I know it was a bit awkward, but I am the host, of course, of Road to Success podcast, and it is recorded, most of you know, in the back of two of our studio vans, one based here in the United Kingdom and one based in the USA. This year, we've recorded our first ever episodes in the USA, so these awards are going to include not only UK guests, but also US ones too. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to be giving several awards today, including the best conversation of the year and my personal favourite guest. We're also going to be including your favourite guest of the year from a poll that I've conducted on my Instagram, and including our number one fans of the year too. Now, the first award is actually the toughest to park the bloody van award in 2025. Sometimes when we go to podcasts, it is incredibly hard to actually park. Some have to be recorded in central London. This year, we've recorded them on top of literal mountains, and we've also had to squeeze down the smallest back alleys and streets just to find somewhere quiet enough to make sure that we can do a good recording. But the one that tops it has to be with Mr. Richard Porter. We filmed this episode around the Bath area of the UK, and it features some very narrow little streets. Richard said to us to reverse up to and down his back alley towards his back shed, which was a grass road that I don't think had been driven down in years, and we had to squeeze the van against a literal hedge to get down it. But on top of that, I had to instruct Toby, who was driving, where to actually go in the van whilst I was on crutches. So I think that wins the award for the toughest to park the van in 2025. It has to go to Richard Porter. We now have the highest recorded podcast in 2025 award. This is done on highest above sea level because we have an insane and only contender for this really, which was Austin from Valvetronic Exhausts. This episode was recorded with the back doors of our US van studio open, and it was recorded on top of a literal mountain. I'm not joking. That you have a thing in the US, some people will know, some people's partners will know, it's called Bixby Bridge. It's a very famous bridge outside of Carmel, and the week of the Monterey Car Week show, which we were there with the US van studio, we recorded with Vin Wiki, we recorded with Jason Camisa, and we recorded with Austin from Valvetronic. I think there's a couple others that I did there too. But the podcast was recorded at our Airbnb, booked by my friends Jackson and Will, that helped us build this very van studio from the Captain Crankshaft channel. Now, they booked a $19 million ranch on top of this mountain that took 25 minutes to climb up the mountain to get to on a single track road, weaving between like 150 foot tall trees, and the van barely made it up there. We found out after that the air hose had actually came off going into the engines. There was a bit less power to help get up there, but it genuinely struggled when it started passing through the clouds. It was recorded at 2,900 feet above sea level. We could also see the sea down there, and during the episode there were literal clouds passing behind the van and past the 992 GT3 RS we'd also got on top of there to record the episode with it in the background. And you can book that Airbnb yourself if you ever go to Monterey Car Week. If there's like 20 of you, it actually works out much cheaper, which is what we did. It was like a content creators hub, but I'm not sure if we will ever record a podcast at higher altitude than that. The next award is for the best backdrop of 2025 award. Now, we know that a lot of you listen on Spotify. Apple doesn't even offer the video side of things, and you might be listening to this very conversation, but half of you do view and watch the podcast, whether that be on YouTube, whether that be on video on Spotify, and we make sure that we open, when we can, the back doors of both of our vans if there's somewhere cool that we can record. I actually started doing this just over a year ago with Shmee 150 was the first one ever, because we were worried about echoing with the audio, what we could run it through, external sounds, whether there's a plane going over or whatever. Really, it always makes it difficult recording podcasts outside the van or letting other audio in. However, we have some insane contenders for this, because Ted Kravitz, we had to record with the back doors of the van open for that one in the middle of central London, but it actually ended up being quite quiet. And we did that because Ted was a bit claustrophobic. So we had to make sure the back doors of the van were open. It wasn't necessarily a very good view, but it was a hell of a memorable moment. But we've recorded with Calvin's Car Diaries wall in the background where he gives away all of his cars. But in terms of the best kind of looks on camera, which is what I'm going for, there is only a few contenders. Now, Jay Leno has to stand out, which is why I've put him in third place. There was a literal McLaren F1 in the background of the shot, and I think many of you will be shouting, saying that he should have won this. However, when I was picking the winner for this award, I wanted to also judge it on how well it looked in shot. Now, next year, we're hoping to get ourselves some slightly shorter microphone stands. Get rid of this bit up here, maybe custom make something that comes up from here, because they tend to sometimes get in the way of the cars in the background of the shots when we put the doors open. So we're going to do that. But for this year, in second place is Shmee 150. It nearly won. Shmee's Garage, the Shmuseum, nearly won this, because even the side camera angles pick up on all the insane cars in that collection. The way they're stacked on lifts also makes it look insane. Now, for the winner, I did this because I think it was the coolest shot I've ever got of a single car in the background of the podcast. Just the way it was all presented, the light in the shot, and then the podcast and who it was themselves. And there's so many contenders for this. If I look on my sheet, Tom Hartley had a Pagani Huayra and a McLaren Senna in his showroom in the back of the shot. Misha had the Vulcan Alpha Mustang placed up high, and we backlit the whole thing and it looked insane. Magnus Walker had his insane Porsche collection, all those 911s with the mirror in the background of the shot. We also had Salamandrin, who had a Cybertruck sort of parked with a wrap on it that looked insane in the background of the shot. But for me, when I stood behind the middle camera before we recorded and looked at the shot of Larry Chen's R34 GTR in the background of the shot, those watching on video will see it now, my jaw just dropped. It was the ultimate angle, the ultimate shot. It looked insane in Larry's shot, which the van nearly didn't even get into. There was literally that much room between the top of the aircon box on the van and getting in Larry's building. So for me, the winner of Best Backdrop of the Year award in 2025 is Larry Chen. Now we go to the least prep time of 2025 award. Now this would go to the guest that we've had the least prep time to record with, and it usually takes me kind of 24 hours to get into the zone of a podcast, thinking about it the night before, watching videos before I go to sleep, waking up on the journey there, either listening to other podcasts they've been on or some of their videos. But sometimes we don't get the chance to do any of that because an opportunity is dropped on us to literally get the van, turn it on and go to a guest. This year, most people were pretty booked in. We had, whether it be in a week's time or 2 weeks' time or even in a month's time in some cases. However, there were two for this that stood out to me. So I'm going to have a first place and second place award on this. So in second place, Misha, you're getting this award. Misha, back in May of this year, dropped me a message to say something had happened at the Nürburgring and he was absolutely furious. A poll was created to ban him from the track he has created the most content and views on in the local area of Nürburg, and he was furious and wanted to put across his side of the story. We literally got the message in our editing office. I looked at Toby and said, I think we should fire up the van. And we drove from Oxford in the UK or Oxfordshire all the way to the Nürburgring in a solid 9 hours door to door. We then recorded with Misha. Was it the next morning? The very next morning. So that for me is in second place. But in first place, Jay Leno. Yes, you heard that right. Jay's episode wasn't booked in at all. It was the Wednesday that I was in America. I'd come back from Monterey Car Week to LA. We're staying at Soho Warehouse. It's where I stay when I'm over there recording podcasts. Got a great big car park that the van can sit in. And it's actually quite cheap per night, surprisingly. Genuinely is. So we were staying there, and I get a random call from an unknown number. Now, luckily, a friend of mine that's been on the podcast had given me the phone number of the agent to Jay Leno's details. And I had texted and WhatsApped him 100 times. Been a complete noddy, a complete pest. Never got a reply. I thought that opportunity was over. I then get a call from an unknown number as I'm butt naked in our hotel room, about to get in the shower. So, look at my phone. I think, that can't be good. No caller ID. Why the hell would I answer that? It's not going to be good. So I put the phone down. Ended the call. Immediately, phone rings again. No caller ID. So there's me thinking, has something bad happened at home? Is mum okay? What could it be? So I thought, screw it, I'll pick up the phone, check everything's okay. Picked up the phone, said hello. And a voice said, "Hey Ben, it's Jay." I did not clock that this was Jay flipping Leno on the phone to me, who I said, "Jay who?" "Jay Leno." At which point the penny did drop, and I realised that he'd actually called me. Well, it turned out that Jay listened to a couple of episodes of Road to Success prior, knew of me in the van, and when he found out that we were in town, he had a window that afternoon to record, and he said, "Could you get down here in 45 minutes? If you can, we can do an hour's podcast." I didn't even know how far away it was heading down to Burbank from where we were staying, but we managed to do it in about 55 minutes. We got down there and ended up recording an hour's podcast with Jay. And when I got to his unit, I actually had to reverse the van in between a Lamborghini Miura and a McLaren F1. That could have been potentially the most expensive accident of 2025 award. I had no time to prep, did it with literally no script, but somehow it came out okay. Jay Leno, you win the least prep time of 2025 Road to Success award. Now we go to a big one. Most viewed episode of 2025. Now, believe it or not, as the podcast goes on year after year, the guests do care about this. It's a bit like the Top Gear lap time board that they used to have. It used to be a proper competition, level playing ground. Let's see how the episode does. Of course, this is based on so many factors. Topic, guest, how much time you guys watch the conversation for. There's so many factors on what gets an episode pushed. And trust me, if we figured it out completely, I would be worth a lot more money on this podcast. And hopefully we do in the future. But we have 3 episodes that are in contention for the most viewed in 2025. Kicking it off in 3rd place was the Ben Collins original podcast that we did about basically unmasking who the Stig was. This episode is now just approaching 4 million views since it was recorded 2 years ago on YouTube. And this year, it has done an additional 419,509 views, putting it in 3rd place of the most viewed this year. In 2nd place, we have Izzy Hammond, the story of what it was like growing up part of the Top Gear trio with a dad that was in Top Gear and doing so much recording, and then how she ended up getting into cars subsequently and what that journey's been like for Izzy. It was genuinely a fascinating conversation. She made me a cup of tea the second we arrived and recorded it just outside the doors of the smallest cog. And also it was the day I got to properly meet Richard Hammond, who turned up in his truck just before we started recording with Izzy. And as we were setting up, came to the side door of the van, looked around inside the van and said to me, "Are you telling me that you're putting my daughter in the back of a van that's locked for over an hour and I can't really do anything about it?" I said, "That's exactly what I'm telling you." He said, "Right. Cheerio, chaps," and walked on indoors. So that was our interaction with Richard and podcast with Izzy, which did a total of 434,947 views on YouTube in 2025. It was also one of our most streamed episodes on Spotify. But in 1st position, one of the conversations I thought may never happen, although I'd heard a sniff that he was releasing a book. And that usually does mean that guests are a lot easier to get on when they've got something that they want to promote. So, drum roll please, with 650,654 views, Mr. Andy Willman, the one and only Top Gear producer. We've seen a theme here for first, second and first, but the one and only Top Gear producer, grew up with Jeremy Clarkson at school, had some insane stories, and we were so lucky that Andy did do the podcast rounds, as we call it, when he came on Road to Success, but we were the first to get an episode live. We recorded it just outside the studios where they used to plan and kind of create all the Grand Tour stuff and Top Gear in London, down a street, single yellow line, pulled up, and luckily it was actually quite quiet that night. Very easy recording. And when we finished, Louis came with me. I looked at him and I said, that is going to be our most viewed episode of 2025. And to be fair, I was correct. So in first place, Mr. Andy Willman. We now have funniest conversation of 2025. Now, it's almost hard to choose this because I think pretty much every guest has made me laugh in some way or another that's come on Road to Success this year. I remember laughing massively at Jason Camisa. He was absolutely brilliant when he came on the podcast. There's been so many, genuinely, but there was kind of two that turned me into kind of proper laughter this year, one of which in second place was Lenny from Urban Automotive, who just kept forgetting the questions.
It was important to evolve from that. I can't remember the question. What was the question? Sorry, mate.
What's the question, Toby?
But thank you so much, Lenny, for coming on. Genuinely one of the best career building and career stories I've had on Road to Success, and someone genuinely inspirational for a really wide audience. But in first position, a regular viewer of Road to Success, believe it or not, I actually messaged this guest when I saw they were playing the podcast in the background of one of their car wow videos whilst doing a recording. So with his hands around his nuts, Matt Watson, for this incredible moment.
So I've got this doctor with his hand around my nuts. Then he's like looking at me a bit funny. It's like, what's wrong with my nuts? And then he basically just says, I bought a Skoda Octavia VRS because of you. And he's got his hands on my nuts.
The next award is You're Bloody Back Again, for the guest that has returned the most times on Road to Success. As you know, some guests are brand new, and we get into the story of how they got to where they are today, kind of covering everything that I've never had the chance to uncover about them before. And some guests we get on every year, every 2 years, to make sure that we get up to speed with what's been going on with them. Maybe they've had a big life moment, or maybe we just like to have a blimmin' nice chat. Now, there's actually a lot of contenders for this award for people that have now been on the podcast multiple times, including Misha, Tavares, Auto Alex, Shmee150, Ben Collins, Jamie from Officially Gassed, Ricky Elder, Calvin's Car Diary, and Mike Brewer. Now, there is plenty of other people that have been on the podcast multiple times, like Matt Armstrong, for example, but these are limited to guys that have returned in 2025. So, in third place, Auto Alex. Auto Alex has returned 3 times on Road to Success for podcasts. He's always super funny, super easy to get on with, to record with. Alex has been brilliant. His first ever episode was talking about why he left Car Throttle and set up the Auto Alex YouTube channel, which is now employing so many people, is now a multiverse of different channels, and creating some of the best content on YouTube for cars. So thank you to Auto Alex for returning on Road to Success. In second place, with 4 returns on Road to Success in total, the wonderful Tavares. Yes, Tavares is always back. We're always talking about how his P1 project is going along and asking when it will be done, and never seem to get a conclusive answer. However, it's always wonderful to speak to Freddie in the van. He is the most known car rebuilder in the USA. He has worked on some insane vehicles, and to be fair to Freddie, he's always pushing the limit. This year, he even bought a Porsche 918 Spider, which we'll probably be chatting to him about in 4 episodes' time again. But in first position is, of course, with 5 visits, one of the guests that's the furthest away to film with as well, Misha. Misha has now frequented this van 5 times, and I could not be more thankful. Conversations with Misha are always one of the easiest to record around. He's always got so much to talk about, so much going on with Race Tretto, his new coffee shop at the Nürburgring, which you must visit if you go out there. This year, he's been super passionate since he's launched Vulcan Alpha, which they've been making carbon fibre and performance downforce products for all kinds of vehicles, with his partner Lapo, which was just insane story. You must listen to that. Misha literally always has something going on, whether it's a near miss, something that's happened in his racing, whether they've been losing something, winning something. He's always a fantastic conversation, and someone I'm confident we will bring you consistent episodes with every year on Road to Success. It's now time for the I Never Thought They'd Bloody Do It award. And there is so many contenders for this, whether it's been guests that I've been personally messaging for a while, that I kind of got into the mindset of they're never just going to give me a date and going to be able to record. Some guests that are really unsure about doing the recording, whether they wanted to kind of go in depth about themselves and the way it was going to work, and people that I thought were just damn right unattainable. We have so many contenders for this, including Mr. Andy Willman, but I did know that he had a book coming out in a year or so, which is when I first found out about it, but I didn't know if he'd actually do it. There's also Tommy Otto, who I was talking to for a literal year to get in the back of the van, and then finally got a date to record with him. There was also Lenny from Urban. Lenny I've been speaking to since I literally started the podcast, but wanted to let some time pass since his last one. And Lenny does not like talking about himself, however did a fab job when he came on the podcast. However, in third position has to be, once again, Jay Leno. I really didn't think that I'd be getting the chance to interview Jay Leno in 2025. I thought there was a slim chance of it happening in the future, because he does like to collaborate a lot with other YouTubers, but I never expected it to be this year. You heard the story of how it happened earlier. Purely insane. In second position, Matthew Watson, because this was a podcast that kept being rolled over and rolled over and rolled over and rolled over to just a bit longer, because I think his book was delayed about the same amount of times as Freddie's P1. However, we finally got Matt in the back of the van. We did it with the back doors open, a Suzuki Jimny in the background, which you could buy. Matt actually imports Jimneys as well as doing all of his Carwell videos and Matt Watson videos. But Matt, we finally got him in the back of the van, finally told his story, and he also wins the award for the biggest laugh, as you heard earlier. However, the hardest guest I have ever had to get in the back of the van, which took 2 years of persuasion, 2 years of nudging at car events, and finally got him over the line before he departs the UK, was Yanni from Yanimize. However, when we did the recording and finally got Yanni in the back of the van, it was one of my favourite conversations I've had this year. It smashed over 300,000 views in just a matter of weeks since we recorded it. It's going to go on to be a really big episode on the channel. So thanks for Yanni for finally getting in the back of the van after pressure from his friend Simon, the founder of Urban Automotive, Lenny. So many people pressured Yan to come on, and he finally did. We're now going to the favourite female guest of 2025 award from me. Now, we know the automotive world is dominated by male guests, and this podcast is kind of an automotive linked podcast in the same way that Top Gear did its star in a reasonably priced car. We could literally have someone without a driver's license come on that in some way links to an automotive story and has an insane success story. This year, we recorded with several women, and to be fair, this was one of the hardest awards for me to choose because I genuinely loved every conversation I had with Jodie Kidd, Izzy Hammond, Susie Wolf, all incredible people, all had incredible stories. Jodie Kidd, we recorded with the back doors of the van open in her pub with a pint, and it was absolutely boiling hot. The camera literally overheated at one point, and we didn't think we were going to get it working again, but it was genuinely really memorable. But I think just from an experience, a conversation, some relatableness, the way they came out of their shell, I'm going to give first place this year to Izzy Hammond. So well done, Izzy. Would love to have you on again after many Drive Try Mountain stuff you're doing with Quadrant again in 2026. We now have Most Grateful to come on the podcast award in 2025. Of course, I'm striving for huge names with massive followings and people that are widely recognised across the world to visit the back of this van. We have some insane people coming up in just January of 2026 to already kick us off. However, there's also people that are either less known or never thought they'd get the opportunity to come on Road to Success that have equally amazing stories of how they got to where they are today. And those people sometimes have pretty cool reactions when they either get the message to come on or are actually here in the van sitting in the seats that so many amazing people that they follow have also sat in. And we've had some great reactions this year. As I say, some people don't even know what podcast they're coming on. Susie Wolf, Valentino Balboni, they had no idea. However, they do now. But some people watch every episode, as I say, and are involved in maybe other people's channels. So, in third place, Jim Wiseman. Now, Jim doesn't get enough credit. He doesn't do too much media work, and he couldn't believe that he was actually on the podcast. Big smiles, cups of tea. He was absolutely fabulous. One of the original Top Gear producers and researchers with some amazing stories and an amazing success story himself of how he actually beat hundreds of applicants to get that initial job, which formed that magical team that created our favourite motoring show. In second place, Kit, the number plate specialist. I absolutely loved this episode. I sometimes love dropping in more educational episodes for the audience rather than kind of the guest and the guest's journey to success. And we spoke about everything number plate related because Kit runs the number plate history page and has some fascinating insights and stories all about them. But Kit genuinely couldn't believe he was in the back of the van. He actually came to my house, bless him, and we recorded it right in this very spot here, sat on my drive. So I really enjoyed that episode and it was really nice to see his reaction. But by an absolute mile, the most grateful guest, which was literally hugging me, teared up that he couldn't believe he was in the van, messaging me the views that the episode was on for 3 or 4 days, which it absolutely smashed it, had to be Dips from P1 Auto Keys. I absolutely loved recording with Dips. I'm so glad I chose him as a guest to come on Road to Success. His story was amazing, genuinely shocked by some of the things that he's had to overcome to get in the position that he's in and to be the man that every single YouTuber, whether it be in the UK or the US, calls upon when they just don't know how to fix electrical issues with their vehicles. So Dips, congratulations. You are the most grateful guest of 2025 to come on Road to Success. Now listen up for this next one. This one you guys can change if you come off this and go and click it. However, this episode will probably be included in this as well. This is the It Should Have Got More Bloody Views award because there are so many contenders for this. Sometimes the best conversations, in fact, most of the time, the best conversations I ever have on this podcast end up being some of the least viewed episodes. Well, in my opinion, of course. I'm there absolutely fascinated by what is going on. Think this is going to bang, and then it gets 10,000 views. But that's fine because as long as we can impact, help and support those 10,000 people, they've enjoyed it, and some of our core audience too, I'm happy. However, there are so many contenders for this, and I really hope that in hearing this, if you haven't listened to some of these episodes, please go and check them out because they either genuinely moved me, left a lasting impression, taught me something that I have in my life now. So, in third place, I'm actually going to choose Jay Leno again. Even though this episode is well north of 200,000 views, it was actually released, unluckily, on the same day another podcast with him went live. It halved what's known as the click-through rate on the episode and didn't get pushed out as much as I think it could have done. That episode should have been well over 1 million views, and sadly it got impacted. On our stories channel, there's actually some clips of Jay that went up to 800,000 plus views, where I think it should have been, showing that that episode had far more potential than what it actually did, and it genuinely was a fascinating conversation. In second place, Valentino Balboni, the legendary Lamborghini test driver that Lamborghini have even named a model of the Gallardo after, the Balboni edition, which Hammond drove on Top Gear all those years ago. Valentino told me some of the most insane movie-worthy automotive stories I've ever heard on the podcast, including how he and Ferrari test drivers, both based in Maranello, used to pull up in laybys outside Modena and swap the cars so that the Lamborghini test drivers could try out the latest Ferrari stuff and vice versa without the brands ever knowing. He also gave me a story of how he punched Jeremy Clarkson in the face or had some kind of altercation during a test drive because he got so angry about Clarkson being a bit of a buffoon. You really should go and check that podcast out. It's probably worth having the transcript on for it, having some text, because I think Valentino's very strong Italian accent doesn't make it as easy as possible to listen to. But if you're really dialed in, maybe on a car journey, that one is an absolute gem to listen to. In first place, Junior Sullivan. This is one of the most heartwarming, impactful episodes I've ever recorded on Road to Success. I genuinely couldn't believe what Junior has been through. He lost both of his parents to a horrific car crash where a lorry went into the back of their car, killing both of them. The lorry driver had been scrolling Tinder at the time on his mobile phone, and it resulted in this horrific moment where Junior lost both of his parents. But he's kind of turned that around into the positives that you can take from it. The lessons learned about being on your mobile phone whilst driving, which so many of us do, and the kind of story and impact on what happened to that lorry driver, how he went to prison and the impact it can have on our lives. He also kind of gave some statistics of the sheer amount of people that use their mobile phones while driving and what 1 second can do to your life. So I think that by hearing his story, I know it's had a massive impact of making sure I put down my phone when I'm driving this year. A lot more. I tell myself off if I've ever gone to pick it up since I've had that episode with Junior, and I think that it will save countless lives just from listening to that episode alone, let alone the work that Junior has done. So Junior, you win the It Should Have Got More Bloody Views award of 2025. Now time for the Best Business Podcast Award of 2025. On the channel, I categorize podcasts up a little bit so that if you have a specific niche that you like to listen to, whether it be Formula One style podcasts, Top Gear style podcasts, or business style podcasts, you can kind of binge watch them if on a specific day you're feeling a little bit more into one of those categories. Now, I have some amazing contenders for Best Business Podcast of 2025, but in third place, Nabil from Topaz Detailing. Topaz, the biggest detailing company probably on earth. They've got places all over the world. They've franchised so many staff, and it all started in a garden shed of Nabil and his brother. Their success story is insane. How they've grown the business is insane, and it definitely is one to listen to if you're a budding entrepreneur. In second place, I had to choose the one and only Tom Hartley. We've all heard of his name. So many people have seen his son Carl on lots of content across the internet for cars, with Mark McCann's channel and all sorts. I've actually done business with the Hartleys myself with some cars, and Tom's story of how he started trading cars in his early teens to get to where he is today as one of the richest car dealers in the world is absolutely unbelievable. As we mentioned earlier, we actually recorded that episode with a Pagani Huayra in the back of the shot. Truly insane conversation. You must listen to Tom Hartley on Road to Success. However, in first place, a conversation that for me as a lover of e-com, a lover of design, a lover of holistic business, there's so many things that went into this conversation with a truly special UK entrepreneur that is also supporting the podcast now, is Paul from HERA. Now, Paul has also supported the Matt Armstrong channel. You see, they have partnered with HERA, and the HWBT is powered by HERA. HERA is an insane brand, and Paul actually started his career many moons ago in waste and has done so many businesses that you'd know the names of, including All Saints. He's been one of the directors at Gymshark, and then he's also bought HERA and grown it into a truly amazing company alongside his daughters. I'm proud to say that HERA actually have a partnership with Road to Success, and for the last 6 months you'd have seen me wearing their clothes on Road to Success constantly. Sorry, Paul, about the tux today. However, make sure if you want some HERA stuff, to be fair, you can go and check it out. I'll leave a link to that in the description below, and you can get a lovely discount by using code RTS2. But their stuff is amazing. Paul is an amazing entrepreneur, and I loved recording it at his home in his car barn with his 992 GT3 RS in the background and a Defender. So well done, Paul. You won Best Business Podcast of 2025 on Road to Success. We're also going to give a nod to the biggest fan this year on Road to Success, and I'd like to shout out two people that I see constantly commenting on YouTube, which is Royd Evans, who I got to meet at a Supercar Driver event. Royd actually has some really cool cars and loves listening to the podcast, and also a channel called UK Bill, who every single episode on a Monday and Thursday morning comments his thoughts and feelings of how it was. and leaving a little thank you. True fan. I really appreciate the hours that you spent listening to the podcast, mate. And I hope we bring some to you in 2026 that you're going to absolutely love. So it's now time for some big ones. And these are two really big ones. And I had to separate them because some people would think maybe this is one award and others wouldn't. So I have my favourite guest of 2025 award and also my favourite conversation of 2025 award. Two completely different things. Favourite guest can be someone that I never thought you'd see on, is the one that I constantly talk about. It's going to be so memorable. And there is only one winner for this, Jay Leno. You heard the story earlier. It's amazing to have had Jay on. He's been around for so long, has the most insane car collection I've ever seen in the world, recorded the podcast with a literal McLaren F1 in the background, and allowed me, an interviewer, to interview one of the greatest interviewers of all time. So the winner for the best guest of 2025 award for me has to be Jay Leno. So thank you, Jay, for coming in the van, if you're watching. Now, my favourite conversation of 2025 award, there are so many that could have won this, but for me, there was really three that stick out. And I'd love to say in no order of third, second, first, but Andy Willman probably is there for me in third, and it probably the best Top Gear conversation. So many new things that were said in that aren't online before. Absolutely loved it. In second place, Larry Chen. That podcast is an automotive lover's dream. We went through his new book, which had the most incredible photos of Ken Block, Jim Carner's, Sultan of Brunei stuff. There is the most insane pictures in the world. And we also put them on screen on the podcast in that episode. And Larry explained all those stories, how he's been mugged for his cameras, how he's camped out on the side of hills. Truly amazing. I was gobsmacked by that episode and could have recorded it for hours. So Larry, I'm going to pop you in second for this year. But the winner for me is Jason Camisa. I don't think I've ever had such an incredible storyteller visit the van on Road to Success. The way he was able to describe some of the things that he's been through to get to where he is today, experiences, crashes where he's gone off cliffs. Utterly fabulous conversation. So Jason, thank you so much for visiting the van, and thank you so much for telling your stories on Road to Success. You win Best Conversation of the Year. Now, I've included, as we get towards the end, another award, the Road to Success Award. Now, this award is to the guest that I think has packed the most into their journey, done the most insane kind of things, and maybe had a moment that without that moment, maybe even being luck, they would not be where they are today, proving to the whole audience that even luck can play into what you're doing, and sometimes you just have to do the thing. And it's actually the last episode we released with Tiff Nadell. I think when you look at everything Tiff has done, from racing, becoming an F1 driver for a brief period in time, getting on to Top Gear. Tiff's actually done the second most episodes of anyone in history on Top Gear, and he has also founded Fifth Gear and done that program. He's done Love Cars. He has done and mad experiences that any car van would simply dream of, from racing to being in front of the television to being an all-round humble and fabulous human being. So for this year, I would love to give our Road to Success Award to Tiff Nadell. Now, before our final award, the Road to Success Award, I actually posted a picture on Instagram just before I got in the van, and I've just had a little look at some of the comments, which would be the fans award for the favourite guest. But I'm actually not shocked that there is so much variation, so many different names mentioned. There isn't a clear winner at all. So I think it shows there are so many different guests that appeal to so many different people that we really do give you everyone you could possibly watch, and hope that we can bring you a lot more people in 2026. I can actually reveal we're kicking things off Max Fosh. So see us there and enjoy us in 2026. Thank you so much. Make sure that you comment everything that you'd love to see, everyone that you'd love to see in Road to Success in 2026. A shout out to my amazing team that work with Road to Success of Toby Harris and Ruben and my partner Edith and Louis and everyone that works on the podcast. Thank you so much for all your hard work this year, and we will see you in 2026. Bye.